Sports Preps 365. And here's your host, Kevin McCabe and Jose Garcia.
We're going to make them work.
I love this because we welcome you back. You hear the voice, you know the voice. It's become you become hip and you become popular and faddish because of a little pro football team that plays out of the University of Phoenix Stadium. But we know where it all began. He's the voice of the Arizona Interscholastic Association championship frenzy, whether it be football, whether it be basketball, and he joins us here in studio. You heard him, you know him, you love him, and you're kind of like my best friend who I don't know. He's Jim Barnett. Jimmy, how are you this morning?
I'm very good. Good to see you, Kevin. Good to see you, Jose.
And let's talk for the Arizona Cardinals, this ride you've been on.
Mm-hmm.
You are the stadium announcer. Been doing that for how many years now?
I've been with the Cardinals 5 years,
And-
3 years as a permanent employee there. With being their stadium announcer. The first 2 years I was doing their preseason games as a backup role. I've known a lot of people there at the Cardinals for a long time. A lot of the people that work within the organization through are in other organizations that I've worked for as well. So I've had some friends in those areas, but just worked my way up.
Did you just wake up with this golden pipe? Is it a lot of coffee drink? What you just woke up with these golden pipes?
I don't smoke, thank goodness.
Yeah, I didn't want to. It's
No,
a high
it's
school
okay.
show,
Yeah.
so
I don't drink coffee.
Okay.
I never have. So it's really weird. I don't know that I woke up with it. I don't know when puberty happened for me, but starting out in the high school level, some people tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you know what? You might be cut out for this." In regards to my voice, and so I just started to investigate that opportunity through different avenues, and they worked out for me.
And you've been doing this with the Arizona Interscholastic Association since you were 17,
Yes.
which is amazing. But before we even get to, I know Jose he's the historian, wants to take us down that.
Sure.
The Cardinals. It's become hot, fun, famous, unique. The third down call. Can you? And I don't. You don't have to really bury us on it, but can you give us a little sample of that?
Sure. The third down call came about. The NFL has rules, and back in the day, a few years ago,
Lots of rules.
Yeah, let's just call them lots of rules. And back in the day, there wasn't much room for the announcer to make any sort of inflection to entice a crowd or anything like that. But slowly but surely, over the course of a couple of years now, they've given us a little bit more room to be a little bit more enthusiastic from the PA mic. So we came up with an opportunity with the bells that we play at the game on third down that everybody kind of has this iconic. They know what's coming when it happens, and then I just searched for ways to say the phrase, third and down in a way that captivated the fans and excited them and got them behind us. So, I just, and it depends on like I was telling you in before we went on live, it just depends on the time of the game, the moment in the game, on how long I'll draw that out. But typically it's a third, very long, and a down, and I put a little bit of gusto behind it. So
Making me chills with the stuff. He's Jim Barnett, the voice of the Arizona Cardinals in stadium, University of Phoenix Stadium. He's also our voice at Arizona Interscholastic Association. Kevin McCabe, Jose Garcia.
Jen, you've pretty much done every pro team here in the back, except for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
except for the Diamondbacks, yes.
But you continue to do the high school games.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I mean, you pretty much reached the pinnacle already. You were with the Cardinals, but you continue to do the high school games.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you still involved with the high school scene?
I love this question because I love to answer it. Loyalty. The AIA has given me an opportunity when I was very young. I started out at Moon Valley High School. The only sport that I didn't play was basketball. Can't you tell because my height?
We're right there with you.
Yeah, off the dribble, I'm not so good, but I can shoot. So I went to, how I began my process of being a public address announcer. I was in a summer camp, and I went to, was it summer camp? No, fall camp. Excuse me. And I went with a bunch of friends of mine to a Suns game back early. We're talking late 80s. So I went to the game, and it was when Larry Johnson played for the Charlotte Hornets. I remember that pretty well. And back in the day,
Grandmama, yeah.
Yeah, Madhouse on McDowell days. So I went to the game, and amongst my friends watching basketball, being elated to be there, I was really enamored with the voice that was coming across the stadium, not knowing who that was or why. And I had sought out an usher and said, who is this person that's talking? And not even knowing that it was called a public address announcer. I was so young. So, they pointed me out to the person, the big redhead sitting at, the 50, but the mid-court in basketball. And it was Jeff Munn. And so I said, wow, that's a really cool job, because as a kid, you look at that, I'm really close to the action. It's the NBA, and there's really cool. Everybody could hear me. And so I went back to my high school coach at Moon Valley High School, He was my math teacher, and I was a student aide for him at my senior year. I said, hey, do you guys have a basketball announcer for your games? And they would use a teacher like most high schools do.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I really don't have one if you'd really like to do it. And so I started lugging in speakers and doing the games. And, if you, as a historian, Jose, you would know this, back in those days in the 90s, as I continued to do Moon Valley basketball, some players like Richard Jefferson came through Moon Valley. We won a state title there. And the coach there, John Bowie, who's always been a very special friend to mine and I hold dear to my heart, a real good guy that's always taken care of me. So in those early opportunities doing basketball there, a gentleman that was the athletic director at Moon Valley, his name's Zig Kwiatkowski. He's since passed, but everybody knows Zig. And Zig became an activities coordinator for the AIA and tipped them off a couple of years later that, hey, there's a guy at Moon Valley High School that I think you guys should know. And Dr. Boy Stewart Coy at the time for the AIA, they interviewed me, Dick Stewart, another person that's passed with the AIA. These are people from the past, obviously. So sat down with me and they hired me as the PA announcer, and that was the year they opened up America West Arena. And so they moved over the high school championships to America West Arena, and then with any opportunity, as you're being heard by pro sports teams inside their venue, those opportunities start to line up for me.
And it all came full circle for you because
It did.
You got to do the NBA with the Suns.
Yes.
And at one point, you caught up again with Richard Jefferson. Talk about that story.
That was such a fun story. Richard, I've known Richard since he was very young. Probably 8th grade through John Bowie knowing him, coming through Moon Valley High School, and Richard was a typical kid as he was. As a freshman and a sophomore in high school, but obviously grew into his body pretty quick. And so full circle for me was being able to be at those games, doing those things, doing the title game at, America West Arena at the time. And then Richard making it all the way to the NBA. And then when he was with the New Jersey Nets in the years 2002 through 4, I was with the Phoenix Suns as their announcer, and he came into play, and it was really cool. We got some pictures taken on the court, and we've since reconnected a little bit, and it's been great. They wrote about it in the Arizona Republic at the time, and I thought it was pretty cool.
That's what makes this sports and all sports great, are these stories, and they evolve. And I even you, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I can't believe. I remember when this kid sat down and I said, "Wow, this is great. I love it." That first game though, and you're knocking on the door of completing 4,000 career games.
Yes,
which is amazing in itself to think that you can total those all up.
Mm-hmm.
If I that first one though, first championship game, how neat and how special was that one?
You know what's really cool is last year, Jose would know because he writes the scripts for me for the AIA for this. But as we're celebrating the anniversary teams for the AIA, we do a 25-year and a 50-year recognition at the basketball tournament. And last year, Jimmy Kalisko and the old days of Saguaro were celebrating.
Nadillo,
Yeah, MJ Nadillo. They were doing their 25-year anniversary. So here I am reading their script for them. But those were one of the first games coming through America West Arena that I did for those group of players. Wow. And I thought, wow. And that's when I turned to my table mates, Dana and Jerry, and I said, it's been 25 years, you guys. I cannot believe I'm still sitting here doing the same thing. I love it, and I'm glad I am, but it's been pretty cool. So, as far as approaching that 4,000 game, I have some special memories. The basketball recall that I have is back in the day when Mike Bibby was at Shadow Mountain, and Lamont Long, who maybe didn't make it quite as far as Mike did, but Lamont Long was with Corona del Sol at the time, and that game at America West Arena was, I had heard, because I'm inside the stadium, that was standing room only. It was sold out inside, and there were people being turned away on the outside. It was such a big game, and that game was very special. A good game, highlighted by a lot of stars on the court. But there was also, in football, Mountain View versus Brophy a few years back. Yeah. The overtime game at Sun Devil Stadium. Those were some pretty special memories too. But I do, it's great to see players. When they have success. I don't do just basketball and football for the AIA. I do volleyball. I do the Spirit Line Championships. I do baseball. So I've seen some players come through that have made it to the pros. But even so, I really love the rawness of the high school game. I love the players. I love their parents. I made a comment earlier. I'm just bringing it up because it's fresh to my memory. But this year at the volleyball championships, it was just so special watching this guy. I had seen this kid. She plays for Desert Vista. Her name's Haley Harward. Yep. And I had seen her just as a sophomore grow up. She had been there 3 years in a row, and she's not the tallest on their team, but she was you could just see in her demeanor on the court, the way she's very good. She's part of USA Volleyball. I mean, she's very good, but on her team, she might be the third or fourth best player as far as the, who's going where to college. But, she was just super. And I had reached out through Twitter to her dad and said, hey, your daughter is just the best. I mean, I haven't seen somebody come through, and I've been doing volleyball a long time too. I'm like, this is just a special young lady that you have, and it's apparent that as her parent, you've created something special, so be proud of it. So it was really cool. So I like those relationships that we form.
And we do too. And we love the one we have with you. And I feel bad because you and I don't think have ever been formally introduced. And I feel like I've known you my entire adult life.
Kevin, Jim
Jim
Kevin.
Barnett.
It's good to meet you, Kevin.
And Jim Barnett. He is our voice, and I love it. You've also done some other work outside, some voice work, commercials, things like that. So this has been. But then you also Liberty basketball. Now, are you went out to Speckled Gecko Road? Is that
Speckled Gecko Road? Yeah, I live out in that direction, and a very close friend of mine, Mark Wood, is the head coach at Liberty High School. He's building something special there that goes far beyond wins and losses. I can tell you that. His team and the preparation that they have as young men are accelerated beyond belief. And Mark reached out to me a few years ago. I've known him for a long time because of the AIA relationship that I have with basketball programs, but he had reached out to me and said, hey, would you mind coming over, and very similar to the role that I had at Moon Valley High School, do it for Liberty. And so I decided, because my daughter will eventually go to Liberty High School, I thought, well, this is pretty cool.
Look at this. You've become a dad now. I've watched you grow up and become a dad. Final question, because I know we've got to go to break here, and you know how that works.
Sure.
They're backing time. Do you go to arenas now and listen and now, like the rest of us broadcasters, judge the good and the bad?
I do. I don't judge. I just listen. I think that I try not to judge, only because I know I could be judged at any time too. So, fortunately, it's been a blessing to do what I do. And if anybody reached out to me to ask me, what makes a good announcer, or what can I do to get in your shoes one day, it's unfortunate that the PA announcer position, people have to either pass away or be fired in order for you to get the job. So that's usually how it works. But I've waited my time, and now I tell everybody I've taken IVs at games before because I'm sick, and at a Suns game before, taking IVs in order to continue the game in the second half, and I'll do everything that I possibly can to stay in that seat, because I know that once you put somebody in the seat behind me, unfortunately, it creates more opportunities. So those are kind of a sadistic way to look at things, but that's the way our positions work. So
best seat in the house. James Mello, quick question here before we go.
Yeah, I guess the connection that you share with the fans, though, Jim, being that guy that's basically rallying a sold-out stadium at University of Phoenix week in and week out. I see on social media parents reaching out to you about how much their kids love hearing your third down call. I guess what's that been like for you to kind of have that connection every time you call different things with the fans at University of Phoenix?
I love it. The Bird Gang is very special to me with the Cardinals. They rally. There's a lot of friends that I have that are inside the Bird Gang, but they reach out to me on social media a lot. They love what we're doing. They really took a hold of the third down as one piece of the evolution of what we're doing. The first down calls and other things that we do. It's a big thing. So the fans, I love them. I love them 100%. They have been very, very supportive of what we tried to do at the games, and they get behind it very much 100%. So I love it, James. Good question, by the way.
No, and I love what you stand for and what you become, and just the things you're saying here, and the stories and the history, and watching the Richard Jeffersons grow up and become young men, and not only Richard Jeffersons, but even the other players that you saw, and maybe the unique stories. I just think they're so fascinating. The game of PA announcing has changed in certainly a lot of different sports. The Rattlers, you're a cheerleader. Mm-hmm. The NFL, they barely allow you to cheer. How challenging has that been? In the Suns, same thing. How challenging, how fun, how different are all of those?
They're very different. I remember back in the day when I took the Arizona Rattlers job back in the later 90s, and when I was told the description of the job and had already been to games and heard Jeff doing those games, I thought, man, I can try to make it my own, even though there's a substance there. To be a fan on the microphone is really how that's described. And from that job, when I took there, there's teams that have been come and gone now, but the Arizona Sting of the National Lacrosse League team, they had hired me out in Glendale to be their announcer because of the Arizona Rattlers job, because they wanted the very similar style, rock and roll style, in your face with the fangs of the world and that kind of stuff for those games. So that's very different. Yeah, and the Stingers, absolutely. But every league has its rules and what they want to see, and they control those things. They're big enough, obviously, that they can do that. And there's a rule book. You'd be surprised at what the rule book looks like when you look at the PA part of it, or the PA, or cheerleaders, or music, etc. Yeah. But it's all for the good. It's for the betterment of the game.
We're joined by Jim Barnett, voice extraordinaire, the voice of the Cardinals and the AIA for its championship games as well. Jim, you do have a day job. I know you have a lot.
Yeah.
Let's get into a little bit.
By the way, you got to go to work every day,
and we'll throw a pitch, because I know you want to get some business as well. But talk about what's your day job for folks who don't know.
I'm a mortgage banker, for those that don't know that. So I produce loans for people who are buying homes and reselling homes and refinances. I was about when Kevin had mentioned other players besides Richard Jefferson. There's several players that came through Moon Valley and friendships that I've had over the years that they are now clients of mine in my real world. So, those relationships go deeper than just being able to announce a game for them. I've seen them be married. I've been at their weddings.
Yeah.
I've seen their kids. And it's really funny. At Liberty High School, there's players that were at Moon Valley High School who now have children that are sophomores and juniors on Liberty's basketball team. So I'm just like, this the full circle that you mentioned earlier. I'm like, wow, am I old or am I just having a great time here? I don't remember, but it's great. I think that in regards to my other job, I'd like to say it was my first job to be a PA announcer. Shout out to anybody paying me to be a PA announcer. If they want to pay me more, that'd be great. I'll quit my other job. I'm just kidding. I'm total joke.
You
but
can win Powerball, then like
I'll do that too.
Yes.
I'll take that too.
All
You
right.
guys
We don't
are in.
close deals. We open doors. I think it was a tweet you put out.
It is. That's actually one of our slogans for my company.
That's
What's the
awesome.
name of the company?
Envoy Mortgage.
Envoy Mortgage.
Yes.
And final question for me, though, as you continue on here. He's Jim Barnett. He's the voice of the Arizona Interscholastic Association. I'm walking in Home Depot, and I hear on the next row, Shazam. I hear that, and Al McCoy was part of dinner times discussions at, he was a Roadrunners announcer initially. And then does that occasionally where you're walking in a store, a grocery store, or some parent, and wow. And have you got those, because you're the voice. You're not a fake, they don't
Right.
see you, but they hear you. You stumble into those every once in a while?
I do every once in a while. The PA announcer position is a little bit different than being the radio guy. But my daughter, I'll kind of maybe leave you with this if we have to go to break. But my daughter really, really loves what I do. Obviously, I do too. But I can't meet anybody without my daughter walking up to them and saying, "I'm not Jim Barnett, her dad. I'm Jim Barnett, the PA announcer for the Arizona Cardinals." and I constantly tell her, I'm like, "Honey, I'm Jim Barnett. I'm your dad. Let's introduce me that way." So I'm a little bit more humble than my daughter is about it, but I'm also proud to see my daughter being proud of something that I'm doing too. So it's a great thing.
Just make sure you get on the list if they do, in fact, get a Super Bowl that you get a ring for this.
Thank you. I hope so.
Yes. You do it for the love of it, and we're so glad that we have you, and it's a great story. Jim Barnett, don't
Thank
be a
you.
stranger, all right?
I won't. Thank
We're,
you, Kevin.
we're BFFs forever.
And I appreciate it.
We're coming back here. We're talking high school wrestling. We're taking it to the mat, and the Wizard of the West Side, Pablo Rios.
Yes, sir.
He will join us coming up next, talking wrestling at Peoria High School. Almost as old as I am. That's what's amazing. That's next on Arizona. I was going to have you take us to break, though, with one more of the third down. Can we just do that as we're rolling to break here? Jim Barnett, it's now 3rd and 9.
Third